the dailies this morning, and we'll start with the Standard on Sunday. On the front page here, police on the spot in hospital killing. And this is a story that has made headlines this week about a man who was shot dead in a hospital after he'd gone seeking treatment for for gunshot wounds. And it is a story that has now put police on the spot after allegations that police could have been the one who shot this man. His picture is on the front page there, Frederick Musimi, if we could just show you that first page, but also on the front page. Wesley Korir to press for Wario's sacking over the Rio fiasco. It is on page 2. We'll be taking a look at that as well. But let's begin with page 2. Olympics chiefs quizzed and spent a night in police cells. And this is, of course, in following the Rio Olympics and the mismanagement of the team. So 4 NOC officials had been arrested later this week and had been arraigned before CID headquarters yesterday for grilling over the mismanagement of the Rio team, the Kenyan team in Rio, as well as a missing kit that had not been given to some of the athletes. Now, among those who were arrested is the National Olympic Committee Secretary General Francis Paul, also known as FK Paul. We also have the CEO, James Chacha, and Stephen Arapsoi, who were among those questioned by the CID yesterday. Now, they are being probed after it emerged that kits that should have been given to athletes had gone missing. But this week, police raided the NOC offices in Nairobi and recovered cartons consisting of those kits that had not been given to the athletes. Unconfirmed reports say that what was recovered was actually 3/4 of the total kit that had been dispersed for the Kenyan team that was supposed to go to Rio. And of course, the mismanagement of the team, it is being alleged that allowances for the athletes that had been released by the government have not been dispersed to these athletes up to now, after they have come back to Kenya from Rio. And so these are just some of the things that are emerging now after the Rio Olympics. We have had the Cabinet Secretary for Sports, Hassan Wario, disband the National Olympics Committee of Kenya, a move that has been met with a lot of criticism from different stakeholders who say that he does not have the mandate to disband NOC, but many more seem to be in agreement, but also some are calling for the resignation of Hassan Wario himself, saying that he should take the hit because this is his docket to begin with. And then we have Wesley Korir, who was the Team Kenya captain, now accusing Hassan Wario of doing nothing while he was in Rio, despite knowing the state of the Kenyan athletes there. I remember Hassan Wario, as well as Deputy President William Ruto, both went for the Rio Olympics. And Wesley Korir says he spoke to both of them, telling them of the situation that the Kenyan athletes were going through, what they were facing, but none of them did anything. In fact, Korir says that the Deputy President and the Cabinet Secretary only listened to Stephen Soi, who is, of course, among those who have been arrested and is facing questioning by the CID. Stephen Soi was once an elite GSU Wrecking Squad member, and Korir says that he's very feared, he's the most feared actually among the NOC team, and that his word was taken as final. So these are the misdeeds, I would say, of the officials of the National Olympics Committee of Kenya that are now being probed. It is yet to be established the fate of these 3 officials. They will be facing charges in court tomorrow on Monday, and we are yet to hear. But the police say that Francis Paul and Stephen Soi are the main suspects in this misappropriation of funds, as well as mismanagement of the Rio team. Now, on page 3, police are on the spot of a probe into murder of a shooting survivor. Now, this is a story that came into the limelight this week after a patient in Mwingi Hospital who had gone to hospital seeking treatment for gunshot wounds was later shot in hospital by an unknown gunman. 7 bullets were, put into the body of Frederick Musimi, who later died. He had gone to hospital seeking treatment for 4 gunshot wounds that he had earlier received, and he was found by a border rider lying in a pool of his own blood on a busy highway. Now, This is quite a complicated story when you take a look at it, because it is being said here that Musimi was taken to the Mwingi hospital by 2 police officers. But after that, shortly after his admission around 7 p.m., 2 men, again pretending to be police officers, tried to enter his ward but were rebuffed by the watchman. But these 2 men are said to have hung around the hospital compound and later forced their way into the hospital around 2 a.m., opening fire on Musimi, who was in the company of his sister Malia. Now, this, of course, raises a lot of questions as to why the police took a patient with gunshot wounds to a hospital without placing him under guard. And secondly, why the hospital had, not enough security, because these police officers had, of course, tried to, these 2 men had tried to pose as police officers. They were later rebuffed by the guards, but no further security was given to Musimi, who was later killed. Now, the reason why police are on the spot over this probe, however, is because Musimi's sister, Charlene Malia, who witnessed the killing, I remember she was sitting right next to her brother, says that she has been receiving threats from people, and some who call her pretending to be police officers or pretending to be CID officers, asking her to meet up as they will speed up the investigations into her brother's killing. So, a lot of questions really being asked as to how the gunman, first of all, who had left Musimi for dead, later knew that he was alive. Remember, he was taken to hospital by 2 policemen. So could it have been these 2 policemen who told the gunman that Musimi was alive? And secondly, when Musimi's sister, Charlene Malia, later left the hospital, she says that she was followed by 4 other men who tried to abduct her later on. And when she asked for protection, witness protection from IPOA, that is the Independent Police Authority, they said they could do nothing for her until Monday when their staff return to work. The CID also said the same thing. So another question is, why does IPOA and CID not have emergency services when it comes to witness protection? Monday may just be too late for Musimi's sister. And so this is a story that is just coming into the spotlight, and media reports indicate that it is suspected that police could be involved in this killing. And that's definitely a very, worrying story. And when you take a look at page 6 as well of this Standard, it says cruel bosses blamed for stress and suicides in the police force. So this still continues, other than the cases of police killings or police killing innocent civilians, rather. On page 6, we have a story, and a 2014 survey raises the red flag, saying that there are high stress levels among most of the overworked security officers in the country. In fact, it is said that 50 police officers in Kenya kill themselves every year. And this is coming just after last week, following the suicide of a police woman at the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport. And her name was Godentia. She had locked herself in a bathroom and shot herself with her service pistol before leaving a note saying that life got too hard and too many people were plotting evil against her. And this comes just after July, when 8 police officers were gunned down by criminals. But this report shows that police are, the chances of police being shot by criminals are just as high as the chances of police either killing themselves or being killed by their fellow police officers. So definitely an issue that needs to be looked into in the National Police Force. Cases of police killing innocent civilians and cases of police suicides as well on the rise, something that is quite worrying. Remember, these are the very same people that are mandated with protecting the country's population. And the issue of stress. And many of these policemen say that they're being stressed by their seniors, that the workload is too much, the pay is too little, and they have to go out of their way to fulfill demands of their seniors, such as, say, a story here that they are asked to deliver 50,000 shillings per month to their seniors, despite the fact that their salary does not even reach 50,000 shillings, which makes them engage in corruption and other vices in society. So that is a story that is currently taking shape in the country. But away from that, when you take a look at page 10, the country, of course, marked 6 years of the new constitution yesterday, the Constitution of Kenya 2010, that brought with it the system of devolution. Now, in a survey by Infotrak earlier this week, 51% of Kenyans said that devolution was the biggest benefit of the 2010 constitution. But on page 10, CORD leader Raila Odinga says that Jubilee is killing devolution. And of course, this comes as Kenya marks 6 years of law. Raila says Jubilee leaders are not keen on implementing the constitution and that Kenyans have not quite reaped the fruits of devolution 6 years later. And of course, he is blaming this on a massive corruption at the county level. And the fact that both the President Uhuru Kenyatta and his Deputy President William Ruto were not very keen on supporting the constitutional referendum or the constitution that was promulgated in 2010. And so he says that Kenyans need a new system of governorship and new leaders to ensure that devolution is implemented as it should. All right, let's take a look at the Sunday Nation now very quickly. On the front page, burnt dorms crisis hits schools ahead of opening. Of course, it is less than 72 hours before schools open for a third term. And we had over 120 schools that had their dormitories torched in the spate of arson fires that was witnessed just about a month ago. And now these schools are working against time to ensure that they reconstruct the dormitories that had been burnt. That is a story that continues on page 4 and 5. Now, the government has refused to postpone the reopening of the schools that had their dormitories torched, saying that this will disrupt the KCSE and the KCPE schedule. Of course, those are the national examinations that will be taking place in the third term. But the Ministry of Education has also refused to take up the cost of reconstructing the destroyed buildings, saying parents and students of those schools have to take up the cost themselves. So we're now seeing parents and teachers, parents and students rather, being asked to come with about 5,000 to 10,000 shillings per student in a bid to meet the cost of reconstructing these dormitories. And even as the schools open, remember, this is the term that was blamed for most of the school fires that were witnessed. Many saying that students were up in arms over the strict laws that were put together by Education Cabinet Secretary Fred Matiang'i. And of course, among those changes is the fact that the third term, which normally lasts 12 weeks, will now be 9 weeks long. That's 3 weeks less. And some of the things that the students were protesting about, of course, is the fact that there are no social events in this third term, and no visiting days for those in boarding school, no half-term breaks, no sports ceremonies, no prize-giving ceremonies. And this was, looked like quite a big deal to the students going on a strike and burning down their dormitories. And not much has come out in terms of answers as to why exactly this was happening and the solutions that should be put in place. Remember, there was a panel put together by the Ministry of Education to probe the spate of school fires and recommend solutions to it. So we still haven't had anything from the ministry regarding that. And so the question is, in this third term, does it mean that the spate of school fires has come to an end, or are we likely to witness more cases of arson in schools? Do give us your thoughts on that, hashtag Weekend Express, or speak to us at KTN News, or tweet me directly at Michelle Ngele. Now, as we wind up our newspaper review on page 6, rising school bus crashes are causing anxiety in the country. Now, as the country braces for the third term, most schools across the country reopen, and there are concerns about the increase of the number of accidents that involve students and vehicles of learning institutions. Just the other day, there is a video that is going viral on Twitter. NTSA stopped a bus that was hired, a commercial bus that was hired, of a capacity of 40 passengers that had 160 primary schools inside. And, that is a state that students are being transported in our schools. These students were actually going for a long distance trip, many of them standing. And remember, these are primary school students, 6 to 15 years old. And it is something that has really been raising anxiety in the country, and something that stakeholders in road safety need to consider. And on page 8 of The Nation, University Agency says 44 students have joined terror cells this year alone. Now, this is the Commission for University Education that says 44 students from both public and private schools in the country have since joined terror groups. And the chief executive officer says that a conference that ended on Thursday at the Kenyatta University said that 17 of the students who joined these terror groups are actually girls. And that is something that we have been seeing becoming a trend, a rising trend. Girls are being lured into terror cells in the country, and parents still don't have answers as to what they should do to ensure that they protect the children from such terror group networks. But it has been in the public domain for quite a while now that terror cells have been targeting university students, especially those pursuing medicine, engineering, law, nursing, and psychology for recruitment into these terror cells. All right, well, we don't have much time for our newspaper review, so let's bring it to an end there. But do grab your copies of the Sunday Nation and the Standard on Sunday for more of those stories and more. Don't go too far. We'll take a short break, but when we come back, we promised a conversation on how to deal with back pain, and we have specialists who have brought a new technology from India. That means Kenyans will no longer have to travel to India to seek a specialized healthcare for chronic back pain. Don't go too far.